Hello.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for joining us tonight in our first installment of the telecommunications section's production, 5G SMMEs and entrepreneurship opportunities. This webinar series is supported by SAIEE, Africa Utilities Technology Council, IEEE South Africa section, and the IEEE Africa Council. Before we start, I'd just like to read a few webinar considerations. Attendees are reminded to ensure the volume is turned up on their device. Ensure you have a stable internet connection. This will ensure the streaming and audio will run smoothly. Attendees can ask questions via the questions panel located within the GoToWebinar control panel. By default, the control panel is located on the right-hand side of your screen. The chat function is reserved for webinar organizers and panelists to communicate with attendees. Attendees will not be able to chat with each other, however, are encouraged to ask questions. A recording of the presentations will be made available on the SAIEE YouTube channel, SAIEE TV. The recording will also be made available on the SAIEE website under the events drop-down menu in the section past events and webinars. This page is updated regularly, so ensure you check back as often as possible for new uploads and subscribe to our YouTube channel. A certificate of attendance will be issued a few weeks after this webinar once we have received the CPD validation number from EXA. I'd like to introduce you now to our host for tonight, which is, Ms. Mati Saku. She's the Vice Chairperson for the SAIEE Women in Engineering chapter. Mati started her career as an engineer in training at Eskom Distribution in 2010. She was then appointed as a network operations engineer specializing in real-time power system analysis. Currently, she's a chief engineer at Eskom, system operator specializing in asset integration. She's registered as a professional engineer with the Engineering Council of South Africa, EXA. She holds qualifications including a BEng Electrical Engineering, Certificate of Business Management, and a Master's degree in Engineering Management. She has been a member of the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers since 2016 and has been participating in SAIEE Central Gauteng Centre activities. She was elected both SAIEE CGC Treasurer and Vice Chairperson for the SAIEE Women in Engineering chapter in 2020. I hand you now over to Mati.
Thank you very much, Mings. Good evening, everyone, and a very warm welcome to the 5th installment of the 5G webinar series. I'm truly honored to be your captain for tonight, but unfortunately, due to the bandwidth issues, I'm unable to switch on my video. So let's get right into it. If you are an entrepreneur or an aspiring one, get your notebook ready because tonight we will be going to school. This webinar will be unpacking 5G small, medium, and micro enterprises and entrepreneurship opportunities. We will be learning how SMMEs may position themselves as 5G value-added service providers. Now, please note that on our chat box, we do have our registration link for next week's webinar, which will be the 5th 5G webinar series, and we also will be putting in an application link if you would like to join the SAIEE telecommunications team. And don't forget to also put in your questions right there to our presenters for today. Now, I would like to introduce you to our first presenter for tonight. Our first presenter for tonight is Rose Moyo. Rose is an ICT senior specialist for the Huawei Enterprise Business Group South Africa section. As a professional engineer with a vast experience in ICT, specifically telecommunications project management and ICT regulation, her passion lies in solutions design and business development. Academic background includes BEng honors in electronic engineering, MEng in telecommunications major degrees, and also an MBA. Welcome to you, Rose.
Good evening. Thank you very much for giving me the honor to host you in the presentation of this webinar. Actually, I would not want to say it's a learning curve for both of us, and it's sharing some of the insights that we have had in the industry. When it looks at my topic, which I just looked at it, is well, how can we leverage on 5G to have innovative industry solutions? Because that's basically what we are looking at. I'm sure you can actually you are able to see me. Is there any, when it comes to this? Okay. So to introduce to you is this topic, I would start off by looking at the trends when it comes to the development, which everybody is aware of. And this is would actually put into perception the importance of 5G in the era which we are in, which is definitely a digital transformation era. So having said that, I think it's not a secret that they say it's now ICT has become a general purpose solution, if you look at it in its entirety. And it becomes a real driving force when it comes to entrepreneurship and innovation in the 21st century. As you'd see in this slide, you'll see that where we are looking at as ICT infrastructure being the foundation of the intelligent world, which is basically where we are looking at. We have on the other side, everything needs to be sensed. On the other side, we need to have everything intelligent. But linking everything there is everything needs to be connected. So it's not operating really 5G in isolation. So it's really a proper ingredient that is actually coming in the mix of all the technologies that are going through. And the key business requirements that we have had identified when it comes to this era of digital transformation. And I think this is the opportunity for any enterprise or any aspiring entrepreneur when we transform or anything is being transformed to quickly identify the opportunities. So the key business requirements, when you look at it, because what solutions that we need to actually be addressing is, are we going to be addressing the solution that are actually really solving the business requirements? There's been a research that has been made, and most of the industrialists, they've come up with more secured operations is one of the things that really they want to be looking at. And in most cases, also you're looking at operational efficiency. It's not a secret that every enterprise that we belong to today is looking at how best we can improve our operational efficiency. First innovation and first product innovation. For you to become competitive and maintain your lead in terms of whatever you want to do to aspire in business, innovation and first product innovation has become really a requirement. And today, the difference with the yesteryear is everything is customer experience driven. And when you look at that, to sum it up also at the end of the day is how do we increase our productivity when we look at the workforce? So these are the key requirements that have been identified. Having said that, we are looking at a very large scale in development of artificial intelligence and IoT. So basically, it means that's where we're looking at. And there is high need for automation, then also autonomous in terms of industrial processes. Those are the key requirements. And the onset of COVID really changed everything. I think the reason why we are also remote conferencing is also because of this COVID issue. We would have maybe had a chance to see face to face and maybe present to each other. And when you look at that, the video has become really a necessity in actually looking at all these issues. And we're looking at the ever growing now, because now the post-COVID, what we are saying is not the norm, will become the new norm. Then there'll be an ever-growing number of devices including the IoT sensors, because in most cases, today we are not talking about the touchless world. So we need a multimedia enablement in terms of that. Having said that, we're saying, what is the role of 5G in this digital transformation? I think in terms of digital transformation, 5G is coming in 3 dimensions. And on the other side, if you can see my table there, in comparison to most of the, the networks that are available today, 5G would be mostly the optimal technology that will be used in actually enabling this. And what does it offer? It offers network transformation in terms of significantly increasing the user experience, which is basically your speed, the capacity and latency, which is what we are looking at. Service transformation, it also looks at how do we not only look at people, but also things facing fragmented markets. So we're looking at business to business, business to X, or business to consumers, how we can actually enable that. Then operational transformation, I think that's one of the things that is actually coming. And having said that, we are saying now 5G really plays a pivotal role in enabling all the services that we would require. The next thing that I want to look at, when we've looked at the 5G as an enabler, we looked at the business requirements. But what are the key requirements for these services? I think if you look at the capabilities of 5G and the impact to the end user, we're coming from 4G, and this slide, I really liked it because it's looking at what we have now or what we had previously prior to 2020, and now getting into 5G, what is going to actually be addressed. And one of the buzzwords which is actually going to drive a lot of innovation is industry revolution 4.0, the applications that we're looking at. So we're looking at mostly what are the key requirements and the impact to the users. We're looking at the latency, the bandwidth. I'm sure this has been talked about prior to this discussion, and we're looking at the capacity, which is forever increasing. Reliability and security, I think when you compare to most of the networks that we have ever had, we're looking at all those, looking at that. All this is not actually coming from me, but actually maybe the research that has been made to say, what is it that we are looking at when you're looking at, firstly, you are looking at what does the business require and what are the network requirements that would actually enable these services that will be required by the business to address their business requirements. So that's in a nutshell what in terms of my introduction, what I would like to say. But before I go to really what we have as 5G in action, I wanted to share with you the market insights. Part of it is coming from my organization internally of what has been our experience being a global enterprise. In terms, by 2026, our own internal research, we're looking at the top applications being from the industry, manufacturing, the government, security, transportation, logistics, and media and entertainment. And you can actually see the priority that it would require when it looks at from the experience to precise positioning. This is about the projects that we have made. On the other side of my slide, you will have also information that talks to what is it that in terms of the forecast, in terms of the global market, when it comes to manufacturing as a service, when it comes to remote control, drone inspection. I think this is more or less something that has been really a requirement as we are going to do that, moving towards predictive maintenance, advanced predictive maintenance, precision monitoring and control. And I think if we talk about maybe our generation and the generation after us, nobody would like to go underground. So it's more like remote robot control in terms of the mining environment and things like that. So you can see in terms of what are the real key issues that we'll be looking at, ultra reliability and the security that they require, and also looking at the market segment to say, what is the market segment? How is it growing? From now, 2021, where we are looking at maybe 2.2 to maybe 2027, where we're going to have more or less of an exponential increase to 180. So basically, you look at, there'll be very much new opportunities in the business when it looks to what is it that we need to innovate and actually offer to the industry. Having said that, my next slide would be talking to the 5G in action. That's my next section. So in terms of the business in action there, what I will say is, I think one of the things that I would summarize my first part is saying 5G is the nervous system of tomorrow's industry. That's how we can actually look at it. And how do we look at it? When we look at the 5G industry services, we've kind of broken it down into 7 atomic applications, which requires really different industry scenarios, and also the 6 atomic capabilities. So in terms of this, as an entrepreneur or as an SME, it's basically you need to understand the customer requirements. From there now map it to what are the capabilities and what are the scenarios that I'll be actually looking at actually serving. And the good part, I'll talk about that later, is the movement to the edge would be really a plus for the small and medium enterprise to enter the market and complement those who are actually giving that. And when we look at this, the industry scenarios, you are looking at all the verticals that you can also think about, which is basically the media, mines, ports, grid. I think there are some people who are coming from the grid, the manufacturing industry. And if you look at what we have looked at, the atomic applications, we're looking at live broadcast, video surveillance, UAV, remote controlled, unmanned driving, and also the private line. The private line, I would say, yes, it would be something that the SMEs would consider, but it's not on the large scale. I think it would be more on how the providers would be actually going to provide their service to the small to medium enterprise more than anything else. And in terms of the capabilities, these has been some of the things that are inherent in the technology, which is from the latency to all the way. I think if you look at in comparison to fiber, the only thing that fiber would lack is basically the mobility, which in essence becomes a requirement, especially in today's era, becomes really on the go every now and again. And with these solutions, I think working within a vendor environment, we've looked at the 3 types of solutions to enable these capabilities within the vertical industries. The first one is basically the private line. I'm sure you'll be much aware about the private line and how the private line would work when it comes to private line. Then if you look at, that's more or less on how the network providers would give a private line and a mobile private line to an enterprise. This that I don't see any much in terms of, or maybe even in terms of expanding, unless if you are into connectivity, to say how do you collaborate with the bigger guys and make sure that basically you create an opportunity. The opportunity would come into the next 2 categories, which is the private network. And with the private network, it has been different configurations that we are looking at. Remember the private network, we are looking at taking now the edge computing and now classifying it in different requirements to say, sometimes if there's need for quality of services to be guaranteed, and when you are now developing your applications, you have moved all the computing power to the edge. So basically you can be seeing yourself to say, how do you now look and step into that and develop it? Then in essence, the other one, which is very essential, is basically the frequency split. That is coming into essence, when it comes to the verticals that are really sensitive about their data and very sensitive about them retaining their own network, how do we provide them more like a private network that basically is going to be given that? So it's up to you to say if you can negotiate with the operator to say, I have got this client, it has got this requirement, now you can develop. So it would differentiate basically the public and the private network. Then the resource reservation, that's one of the key characteristics of 5G, which is coming basically with slicing. So in essence, the third part is the one that will say we will see more collaboration than anything else on the 5G era, because we're looking at inside out from the enterprise, from the carriers themselves or the big carrier providers, and maybe with the services them outside in to say how do they now put together in terms of collaboration with the providers. When you combine the power of 5G and cloud, it will never be in isolation. That's in essence what I can say in this slide. Let me say that I think the only one that I needed to touch base on and maybe make sure that you really look at it in essence is how do we look at this and actually looking at the applications, because in most cases today what we have done is we have moved from where we are saying we develop a solution, then we go and market the solution. But now we need to understand the requirements of the industry. It's driven by the industry. It's driven by the requirement of the industry. The essence where we have said the smart, it's more like a blanket name where everything needs to be smart when we are going to really to transform whether it's education, how to change in terms of the education, which has already been accelerated by this coming of the COVID. What are the functions that you are going to give? Is instead of having a full classroom, you are having a half of the classroom and others who can actually access the content. How can they be now looking at it? If you look at healthcare, what are the key requirements that are driving the healthcare today? What are the key requirements that are now driving what we call the smart campus? If you look at, we were talking just before we started in terms of managing the energy. If you look at how you're going to manage the energy within your campus, how you're going to be more innovative so that it becomes more efficient in terms of even scanning people, monitoring movement of goods and everything. You'll see that in most cases, that's what we're talking about. So in the first part is basically the network and the edge, which is 5G, which is a key enabler. That's why we have that. And when you look at the other part there, we have the service providers. So how do you collaborate so that they are independent? So to enable them to actually, how do they really, the providers of the network, enable them to give that? And if you look at the business to business, what is it that you want to give on the cloud now to say, how do you now collaborate with the network providers? Because for you to start building a network from scratch on 5G, I think it's a pipeline dream, because at the end of the day, the spectrum is scarce and it's actually really bandwidth hungry. So it's how do we now look at those when we're now looking at providing agile 5G on cloud operation for enterprises and enabling a wide range of enterprises, and also differentiating the competitiveness of the private lines and make sure that you're going to be given them what they require. So we would look at that from that perspective. Why is it not moving? Sorry, my network is a little bit slow, so I'm trying to see why my slides are no longer moving.
All right, we can see that integration and interconnection of ISV.
I'm not too sure if we are on the same page because I'm clicking. Mine is not moving. Yours is maybe the audience is moving.
Okay, I don't think it's moving on the audience as well because the slide is still 5G and cloud synergy triggers innovative solutions.
So it's a little bit, that's why I just explained that in terms of the industry applications, when you're saying the independent service software provider vendors, how are they going to be actually be enabled by that 5G? This is why I was saying it's an inside out and then out to the inside when you're looking at the network as an enabler. When the devices, basically, it's more or less the real devices that you'll be looking at in terms of the different devices that whether it's a camera, it's a PC, it's a tablet, or any other devices that you can look at. Then I'm trying to go to the next slide where let me just try to see what is happening. I'm not too sure whether it's my network or what.
Okay, perhaps you can stop sharing and try share again the slide from the slide.
Okay. Okay, let me try that. All right. Can you see it now?
Yes, we can see adaptable to address diverse.
Right. So in terms of going back to where I said we looked at it from the aspect of the core capabilities and the industries that we need to serve. We're saying 5G is agile to be able to actually look at that. So depending on the requirements, and these are typical examples, we have classified the core capabilities from A to M in this slide, maybe as an example, to say, what is it that you would require? What does the mining require? If you look, for example, let me look, for example, the transportation, they will require B. You're looking at the latency that is 10 to 30 milliseconds. So as you develop your solutions and the specific solutions that you'll be a combination of the specific solution scenarios that you might be looking at in terms of developing the solutions. When you look at the transportation, you're looking at maybe number 2, which is data gathering and loading. And if you're looking at number 5, which is the device control. And if you look at number 6, which is HD video. So you have a combination where we are saying, while you're looking at this to say, how do you drive your innovation and look at the solutions that are enabled, then you can package them together. This is why we came up with those atomic capabilities, because at the end of the day, it's a combination of that will give you the solution that you require. And I just want to give you as an example, because in most cases we are working in an enterprise, or maybe we are working in a smart campus, but in this essence, we're looking at a campus production on how you would actually now say, as an entrepreneur, or the good thing is, when you look at the security industry, it's heavily driven by small to medium enterprise. When you look at customized solution, because customized solution experience is not one size fit all, which creates an opportunity for you to be innovative and customize to the requirement. Just as an example, giving this 5G internet solution, if you look at it, they would require, if you look at it from the industry, video surveillance is a necessity as security. Maybe you need dispatching when it comes to production, different things you need to dispatch. And sometimes you need to have device collection, power consumption management, stock taking, and high precision positioning, if you look at that, and sometimes remote control. If you look at all the different other applications that you'll be looking at, device management, data management, operation management, application management, you are saying to yourself, where do I position myself? How do I position myself and make sure that whatever I have, because in most cases, all these platforms that will be actually being made are made in such a way that in most cases, you are now being able to say to yourself, if you develop an application, it's actually sitting on an open interfaces and open so that it can collaborate effectively with whatever. So it gives an opportunity For you, if you want to specialize, let's say in asset tracking, how do you focus exactly in asset tracking and look at the different scenario and adapt them? And you can use any of the different things, because when you're looking at asset tracking, you need positioning. You also need, sometimes you need video dispatch. Then at the end of the day, the network enabler, which is 5G, is no longer the bottleneck for you. And in most cases, you are moving it closer to the edge because of the MEC. So at the end of the day, you're looking at customizing it to the requirement of a specific industry and of a specific client, which in most cases, when you look at large enterprises, they would shun away from developing solutions that are more customized. Yet we're saying now is the time for small to medium enterprise to form a collaboration and maybe develop some of the solutions that are specific to the requirement. And in terms of adoption, how we've looked at it, I think when you look at it prior to 2020, 2019, it was more or less of an exploration phase. And now we are in the preliminary phase. And preliminary phase, as an entrepreneur, what you are targeting is what basically high bandwidth applications. The reason why we're looking at high bandwidth applications, you are now looking to say, what is it, what are the requirements that has been having, actually addressing the issues that have been there when it comes to the bottleneck in terms of the combination of mobility and the broadband requirement. So those are the first ones that you'll be looking at. And when you look at this, just to give you an indication, they are coming from the mine, education, healthcare, some of them, and the buses, whether it's a campus as well. Then it's coming in terms of the wide variety, the second phase, which we are going to embark maybe from 2022. But in certain countries, let me say specifically like China, they've already gone into that development, where in terms of the wide number of applications are being explored and are being now deployed. And much as there might not be on a larger scale, but their deployment is there. You can actually see now is a combination of high bandwidth and low latency. When you look at autonomous driving, those are the things that you are going to be looking at. So in terms of actually looking at how is the industry, in terms of the capabilities are going to develop and what the entrepreneur should be looking at and innovation should be looking and focusing on, it is actually looking at the first phase when it comes to now, and also thinking into the next phase to say, how do I capture my market as we are going into the next phase in serving the vertical industry? That's in a nutshell what I had to share with you today. Thank you so much, and my apologies for the glitch that I had on the other side.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moyo, for that excellent presentation. Sometimes technologies just disappoint us, but a very well presented presentation, and thank you so much. All right, and then our next presenter is Dr. Meguria. Dr. Meguria is a Chief Research Scientist at CSIR. Dr. Meguria has a PhD from Linköping University in Sweden. He has worked for 10 years as a senior research engineer at Ericsson Mobile Communications R&D Lab in Sweden, and is the author of 17 US EPO patents. Presently, he is leading the 5G and affordable broadband networks research at the CSIR. He is the proponent of a fourth leg of the 5G standard to address the next billion unconnected populations and promote digital inclusion. He is currently working on disruptive 5G technology research in dynamic spectrum sharing and extending into 5G unlicensed networks to support affordable broadband internet for all. Dr. Meguria is also involved in postgraduate research and education in wireless communications with several African universities. Welcome, and over to you, Dr. Meguria.
Okay, hello, can you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, great. Thank you for the introduction and thank you for the invitation to deliver this webinar. So my talk will be on 5G and beyond standards and enabling smart utilities and industry innovation around 5G. So it will be based on work that we have done with industry and also the research that we have done within the CSIR. So thank you for the information that we can participate in such seminars. How do I go? It doesn't work. Hello?
Yes, we can hear you.
Okay, okay. I thought the slide.
Yeah, the slides are moving.
Moving, okay. Okay, okay, great. So the salient points will be, I'll be talking about why we needed, a new 5G generation, because there's a lot of questions that in Africa, why do we have to, we haven't used the 4G investment yet. And there are also other very important, national development imperatives like connecting the unconnected. So why do we need a new generation for that matter? And I'll just speak a little bit about the 5G technology standards and the efforts that developing countries have been doing to include some use cases which are relevant for Africa and emerging economic countries, both in Latin America and India. Then we also talk about the 5G spectrum allocations that are important because 5G is a very highly spectrum intensive standard. And then we'll talk about 5G digital businesses and smart utility industry, which we have done a position paper with Ericsson. Then also there is also a very big important factor that will make or break the effort that SMMEs can do here. We need skills. The skills that are required in 5G are a lot of new skills that are necessary, and specifically also multidisciplinary, especially when it comes to IoT and sensing. So I will try to look into the foresight aspects also for the industrial revolution, also artificial intelligence and machine learning. So I don't know how many of you know about the CSIR. The CSIR is a Council for Science and Industrial Research, which have been 75 years existing, doing excellence research and innovation. And our mission is to collaborate with both industry and government institutions, private and also public institutions, for the advancement of the industry and society. So one of the things that many of us actually talking about fourth industry, there is a lot of hype now about fourth industrial revolution. But in my opinion, that there is a need to understand that fourth industrial revolution is a multidisciplinary industrial evolution. Without multidisciplinary research and innovation behind it, will be very difficult to get the necessary industries to grow. So we believe in CSIR. CSIR as a multidisciplinary organization is ready to support SMMEs in different science fields, technology fields. As you can see, the different clusters have different type of capabilities and knowledge that have been accumulated through the 75 years, which can support new SMMEs that are coming. So going back to the generations of mobile wireless, I used to work for Ericsson some time ago, and I was in the second generation when I started there. And have seen now the development towards 3G, 4G, and 5G, and recently also there's a lot of talk about 6G, 5.5G, or whatever they call it, 4.5G, and all those things. But the reason why we needed them is because we want to do more impact in society. For me, that is what it is. We want to connect more people so that we can get applications that are working in a very highly automated environment. So, like for example, Internet of Things, we have to connect all type of signals to sensors, and we want to gather that information and do analytics and do decisions. So we needed these generations not for the sake of it, but for making sure that we get new applications, new services, new industries coming. That's where we want to see the SMMEs, grow. That's where we want to see the SMMEs to come in and innovate. So this is the reason, in my opinion. And at the same time, we need to be also backward looking, because there is a large population and communities in rural areas who are not connected, who don't have the 1.1 to 1 to 2 gigabit per second that is there. They are happy to get 100 kilobits per 100 megabits per second. So that's why the SAIEE Connect initiative was to get at least 90% of the people connected with 100 megabits per second instead of going to 5G with 1 or 2 gigabits per second, maybe for a few people in the cities. So those are the the trade-offs that we have to work on. But what the COVID pandemic has shown is that also that digital connectivity has become very crucial for providing the necessary societal services like education. School children should get access to their material, to the educational material. Health facilities should get information as soon as possible, accurately. So those issues also desire that we invest in the infrastructure. May not be 5G standard, but it should be able to meet the demands of the society. So the technology standards, when they came in, they actually were more directed towards industrial development. Because you can see here that the software-defined networks, network slicing, virtualization, and spectrum flexibility, all of them came to make sure that we have slicing, industrial, vertical industries to grow. And also the new radio systems, the technology that came in to make sure that we have ultra high definition videos to give gigabit per second quality videos, augmented virtual reality. So that's also another industry that is coming. So with that also comes the cloud spectrum toolboxes. The spectrum toolboxes are very important because the way that 5G is requiring spectrum will never go without sharing, or will never go without refarming the existing spectrum to it. And then the ultra low latency and reliable networks that came as a standard within the 5G non-standalone or standalone, also both of them, is to allow industry automation, to allow control in robotics and drones and self-driving cars. So these are, when you see that the technology standard itself, it's more directed towards industrial development, towards supporting the industry to come up with the new industries that are coming. But at the same time, from the emerging economic side, we wanted to see that there is also an affordable broadband use case defined. But it seems that the standard has come already out, So we have to go to the next generation of standards, but there are efforts to bring in, like the IEEE Frugal 5G, standard that is coming, and there is also the European Union together with emerging economy countries coming up with 5G range, extending the range of the radios by reducing the necessary bandwidth that's not important for the case of rural sparsely connected areas. So there is also the massive machine type communications arm of the 5G standard, which is allowing smart sensing networks and the low power radio and the industrial Internet of Things. So as I said before, the whole issue of 5G and in the beyond, the aim is to improve resource use, to improve societal services. So you can see why this figure is there. We want to get more applications in the medical care, applications in the transportation, applications in the entertainment sector, applications for energy efficiency and green network usage, and the logistics part. All of them will be improved by the new standard that is coming with 5G. But we also require the use, to improve our quality of life, not just for the city, for the affluent areas, but also for the rural areas. So that's why the CSIR is has a lot of projects that we are running together with partners like the UNDP to address the issues of rural connectivity. But these are the reasons why we need to go towards new generation of services. So here is an opportunity for the SMMEs also to see how can we use the 5G technologies to improve the quality of life, to improve the safer cities, and to improve the public services, and also build an industrial ecosystem that is more virtuous, so that not only it does only generate more carbon emissions, but also can reduce it. So there is a need now to ecosystem restoration. Natural ecosystem restoration should be one of the industries that should come in, because SMMEs should be our SMMEs, which we are supporting in rural areas, for example. We are trying to get them involved in ecosystem restoration. There are a number of ecosystem restorations that are defined in the United Nations Decade of Ecosystem Restoration document. You can go and see it. Then there is one important component that the CSIR would like also to see industry and public and private partnership should come up with. This is the need for regional 5G plus, like it could be even, it can be used also even for the next generations. And even the 4G include also the 4G ones, end-to-end test bed. This is for promoting a smooth 5G migration. I was involved in informing the public about the 5G and the connection between 5G and COVID. There was a lot of fake news that is going around connecting 5G to COVID. And we have to set up a number of seminars and webinars and interviews to kill this fake news. And if we had an estimate, we could have brought the public to show them that this is the type of application that we are looking. Here is the 5G technology that is there. And at the same time also, 5G requires a whole lot of new spectrum regulations and new business models, which we can test if we had an end-to-end test bed. And 5G is also very good for public information, to engage the public and private businesses. And 5G is also very good to support the SMMEs to come in. This test beds are very expensive. The SMME cannot own such a test bed. unless the multinationals allow them to come in. Then why the M-Pesa? I know most of you know the M-Pesa. This is a mobile payment system that was developed in Kenya. Why it happened was because Safaricom, the multinational company, had allowed a number of innovative young students come in and develop that mobile application. Now we need to also see to it that we have these test beds, end-to-end test beds for 5G, so that we can develop the new innovative 5G application use cases. So that is one important recommendation that I have for industrial players within South Africa and even other countries also. So this I have presented also today with ITU meeting in the morning. So this is very important development. At the same time, we need to look into the new generation of wireless communications as a heterogeneous networks, requiring a complex architecture. You can see how it will look like. We have so many different type of networks operating in the same environment. So we need intelligent spectrum utilization. So CSIR is working in that environment now to make sure that we have an intelligent spectrum allocation for different type of wireless services. And that also is enabling now SMMEs in different setting to allow spectrum sharing networks like the TV white spaces. So as we know, the spectrum is the highway, the super highway that allows a whole lot of applications. You can see some of the applications that are here. You can imagine, if we don't have this type of allocation that is there, and now that we have also digital systems which do not require, we can compress and allow more people to come into the same spectrum area, and we can use dynamic spectrum access. Then we can even involve new applications, new services to come in. So you can see that the reason why I say 5G requires high bandwidth services in a lot of spectrum is because you can see here that it is even going towards a millimeter spectrum area now because there isn't enough spectrum in the lower bands. So the only lower band that's available is in the 3.5 gigahertz area, but all others are occupied. So it has to go to up. But if we can't do intelligent spectrum allocation, spectrum sharing, then we can also reutilize the spectrum that is lying idle sometimes within the allocated spectrum. So this is one of the type of bridging the digital divide, because we have seen that a large part of the rural area in Africa is not connected. And CSIR has developed a smart spectrum toolbox which can identify underutilized spectrum and allow rural SMMEs to deploy networks in rural areas in an affordable manner, in an affordable rural connectivity manner, and connect the agri-centers, the schools, rural clinics, and other businesses that are there in the. This is a project that we are running with CSIR and UNDP in collaboration, and it's called Sustainable Connectivity Project, because we are also supporting these digital entrepreneurs in rural areas with sustainable business models, which we believe that in the long term it will be projects that we can scale up into other African countries. And then there is also this talk about fourth industrial revolution, as we saw it. There is a lot of opportunity for Africa to come in, but we must harness the technologies around it. And we must also start looking into the technologies within 5G, because those circled ones are the ones which are 5G technologies, which are going to be the pillars in fourth industrial revolution. All other technologies that are coming also together, they will all form the fourth industrial revolution. But where do we have the skills in these areas to develop those applications in the fourth industrial revolution? That is a question that we have to answer, all of us. So why do we invest in the new technologies that we saw? It is to make sure that we can optimize our use of resources in a city. For example, a smart city application like the one that you see now requires smart mobility, smart transportation system. It requires smart heating system for the buildings. It requires smart energy generation. It requires the customization of offerings from the industry so that we can collect enough data. So it uses the natural and technological resources to benefit the society and to benefit also nature, because we are consuming too much of the natural resources. So we need to be, intelligent on how to consume and how to reutilize also existing natural resources and technological resources. So that is one of the reasons why we need to invest in 5G in the next generations. The other application that we see is also in the smart tools for efficient healthcare service provision, because most of the referral hospitals are within the cities in Africa. We need to have telemedicine. We need to have possibility of doctors giving information through telemedicine. So that is one of the reasons why we need emerging 5G technologies. Another issue I see also is that there is a lot of misuse of technology, in my opinion. Because while I was, judging a student, applications development for mobiles, I've seen that most of the people who came up with an application they are using, war type of applications, games. But we need to challenge these students, and it's not only entertainment, but there are applications that can be used in the digital 5G technologies to support, for example, handicap applications, to support relevant and innovative services. For example, this one, which I saw in the Mobile World Congress 2018 from CloudMinders, uses the smart vision sensors, GPS, cloud AI analytics, low latency 5G networks to develop a helmet to support a blind person. This is the type of applications we would like to see with the new emerging technologies. So I would like to challenge also the SMMEs to come up with this type of applications. Then the 5G technology and use cases study that we have done with Ericsson. There is a white paper which you can get on the website. The URL is down there, and it's available to download. We have gone through the 5G requirement for Africa, and we have developed possible 5G spectrum areas and potential industry verticals and economic benefits, and selected emerging market use cases and the possibility of regulatory and policy changes. It's all in the report, so I will not go back to it. But one thing that we have realized is that wireless networks connected with smart sensing are the future industries in Africa, because they can connect agricultural systems, they can connect health systems, they can connect energy, utilities, and mining, transportation. We only have to do the data collection and do analytics to make sure that we have we have the right decisions for industry to make. And the smart industries, the smart services that are coming will be used also for efficient resource usage and also implement the fourth industrial revolution applications. And there is a lot of business on that one. The previous speaker has shown that also. There are also a number of issues, as I said before, there's a lot of issues with 5G and health issues. And especially in rural areas now, there is still this lingering issues, some mices that have been spread through social media that we have to take care together with the industry. This is one of the misinformation conspiracy theories that has been flourishing about 5G and the connection to vaccinations and the fake news that said that there is this circuit diagram which has been given together with vaccinations to monitor people's movements and like that. But this one was completely false news, which is traveling faster in social media. As I said before, we need to do skill sets in digital literacy in emerging digital technologies. And here, I believe that the universities should play a very important role. The TVETs also should play an important role in developing the skills, the multidisciplinary skill sets. There are 3 types of skill sets that we need to have when we are going towards 5G and 4th industrial revolution. And we also, not only digital society and user skill sets, we need technology expertise, expert skill sets. In the graduate schools, in the universities, we need to develop those skill sets. Finally, we need also the regulatory and policy, which can enable business creation in using 5G and 4th industrial revolution. There's a number of ethical situations that are coming in when we use artificial intelligence, for example. And there's also multidisciplinary technical regulation that is necessary because a sensor requires knowledge of, like for example, if you are sensing a physiological parameter from a person, it has to be protected. There is ethics on it. And also you need to have a medical doctor to decipher what the signal says. It's not just the engineers that can do that. So there is a multidisciplinary technical regulation that is required in that one. And the policy also should follow through that. And also we need to develop the business innovation around 5G. And one of the universities, for example, WITS Business School, now they have started working on 5G innovation and 5G business innovation. PhD and postgraduate students are now working on that one. So the digital businesses that we can realize in 5G and the emerging technologies with them is that we can realize, for example, creative content because of the high bandwidth content that we can bring in. We can have artificial, very high bandwidth, automotive applications also are there. Smart industry, smart transportation, and smart industry and mining. The mining industry should be able also to use, smart robotics control systems through 5G, low latency communications. And also we have the smart cities, which you saw before also, and the smart health. And there is in the source Ericsson, there is also now 5G societal benefits in 2030. There will be around 4.5 million jobs that will be created when 5G is in place in 2030. And there's also so many billions of USD GDP growth that is expected through the implementation of 5G. So in conclusion, 5G is now commercially rolled out in South Africa and also in Kenya that I've seen now. And we need to destroy these silos and work on multidisciplinary knowledge development and skill sets. And we need also to make sure that industry and government support the 5G open end-to-end test bed. The CSIR is now have a rudimentary test bed for 5G, but we need the support of the industry to make it end-to-end. We need also skill sets upgrades at all 3 levels, starting from the university grade to the younger innovators. We need to have also 5G global standard opportunities to be able to enforce the use cases for emerging economies, and also develop the digital businesses and the industrial revolution that is coming around within Africa. And there is also a lot of spectrum and technical regulations that are required, business models using the business innovations from universities and the SMMEs that are coming in. Policy and ethics of use are still in their infancy because fourth industrial revolution requires them, so we need to make sure that they are available there. Then it is collaborative work, and making sure that we develop the new SMMEs, the new businesses around 5G means that we have to have a public-private partnership to make sure that this happens. So thank you for the invitation from the South African Institute of Electrical Engineers, and I finish my presentation here. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Miguria, for an excellent and informative presentation. Ladies and gentlemen, we will now move over to the questions and answer session. Now, at the moment, I have 3 questions which I will pose to both Ms. Moyo and Dr. Miguria. The first question is, please tell us about the potential of 5G to power or enable the mobile virtual network operator entrepreneur. In other words, if I am an MVNO, what benefits can I derive from 5G that were not there on 4G? I'll start with you, Ms. Moyo.
From that perspective, I think we're looking at basically having a private line, more of a private network being able to be established. You would be able also to maybe really customize faster your services to the client, which is customized to the client. As we have maybe moved in closer to the edge and maybe introduce more, flexibly introduce more services. That's what I can say in essence. And in most cases, when you look at the virtual mobile operators, I think one of the most of them that have been operational, if you look at more, some of them, they are coming from maybe the fintech combination. Today, those are some of the successful ones. So actually them coming up with customized solutions becomes a lot easier when you look at that. And when you're looking at servicing that market or servicing a specific market, it becomes a lot easier and faster. However, I think your biggest challenge, if you are going to develop maybe the other segment, which I said, the private networks, which in essence, depending on what you would want to do, the ability for you to split the spectrum would not be really feasible, especially for South Africa, where we are saying really we have got one of the highest number of mobile operators that are licensed. So in essence, competition for the 5G spectrum is really high, and I don't think it's going to be very feasible for them to get a lot of a spectrum when it comes to 100 meg and above.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moyo. And I would like to have your take, Dr. Mekuria, on the question.
Yes, I think my take is, for the mobile virtual operators is in the the end network where we can connect sensors and collect information. That's where I see that the data collection part, the data analytics, and introducing machine learning and artificial intelligence. That's where I think I see more of the mobile virtual operators coming in my opinion. And this requires, that there is, an understanding from the multinational operators and mobile network operator to allow them to get that data and develop data analytics around that one, and also, support the mobile network operator on optimization of the Internet of Things networks, optimization of the private networks that you mentioned, and connect them to the industry. You see, the connection to the industry requires that there is a lot of smart sensors connected with smart networks, because we need to collect the sensor data in a way that does not destroy the integrity of the data in the long term. Because we can say, for example, health information, that the data that we are gathering requires a whole lot of signal processing in the process. So how do we get that to work together with mobile networks or even other IoT networks? Low power networks are there. So how do we get that one? That is where I see the mobile virtual networks in 5G will operate, in my opinion.
Thank you very much, Dr. Mekuria. All right, the next question we have is as follows, is also for the two presenters for today. The first one, the next question is, how do we promote a smooth 5G transition when most of Africa is still gobsmacked by 4G? I'll start with you, Dr. Mekuria.
Yes, I mentioned something in my presentation about the 5G end-to-end test bed. I think this is something that is very important to have. We need to show that these technologies are actually beneficial for the society. We need to develop the new innovative applications and show it to both, public and private institutions, and the SMMEs coming in and innovating around that technology is very important, as I say, because it's very difficult to motivate 5G investment at present when we have a large population of South Africa, a large population of communities in Africa who don't have 100 megabits per second, but we're talking about 1 to 2 gigabit per second within 5G. So this is this should be followed with the industry investing in technology test beds, like the CSIR has been trying to get this test bed and have been trying to communicate with industry so that they can support this type of test bed. As I showed before, I think if maybe you still have my slides. There are a number of benefits of having the Yes, here. Do you see my slides now? Hello?
Not at the moment. We
Okay.
still,
But I can speak for it. You know, like the
yeah.
5G test bed is the important tool that we need so that there is a smooth migration. But otherwise, it will be just, you know, a few stations within the affluent city areas, and there won't be any other thing. So we need to get the new innovative applications developed locally, and the application and services and the smart industries that are coming up, they have to be tested within controlled environment and you know, be shown to the public, shown to the government so that they can make the investments in that one. And also use these test beds also to develop the new regulations, because the regulations have to come, because there are now self-driving cars with support for 5G. But how do we regulate them? How do we make sure that the drones that we want to control are you know, they have, you know, regulations on how to fly, where to fly, and the privacy of people. You know, people don't want to have drones flying around their houses, around their area. So there are so many issues that are coming. So before we, you know, we have a smooth 5G migration, I think it's very important that we have a test bed and then develop the innovative use cases, applications, locally important services, and then go ahead with a smooth 5G migration. Because otherwise, there's always, resistance to this type of investment, especially in a country and in a continent where we have the economy of scale is getting very low because of COVID, because of other issues also. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Muguria. Let's hear take Ms. Moyo.
I think coexistence of the technology is inevitable. When you're looking at today, we're still having certain parts with 2G, 3G is in place, and 4G is in place. As we are embarking into 5G, there are special, like what Doctor said, there are special cases, much as we are trying to bridge the digital divide. Some of the business case would not make sense for us to deploy a 5G network. A very good example is if you're looking at a scenario where you're looking at coverage, the spectrum that we are currently targeted for 5G, much as is versatile in terms of where it can be looked into, but the practicality of the spectrum that we are looking at does not talk about coverage. We are looking at higher spectrum segments. So in essence, we're looking at how do we optimize certain areas that are really not normally being optimized. We're looking at how do we automate certain areas and address certain challenges within certain areas, such as ports, so that those are the key target areas, much as the test bed, the doc has said, is critical. But the industry also, and the guys who would have bought this spectrum are eager to deploy and maybe get back their investment. So in the first phase, we are looking at campuses that usually would have high density, whether it's high density or critical challenges when it comes to rollout of networks. It's kind of the ports areas, if I can say, and mostly other critical security areas. If you're looking at certain areas like airports, where they can actually look at that. And if you look at also maybe, if we look at, for example, in South Africa, certain areas like malls, where now customer experience, when it comes to
Hello, Ms. Moyo. Okay,
3G,
I think
so that we don't, yes, so that we don't have to leave everybody behind. And the reality is also, how do we now look at, because we're looking at more of the density, whether it's sensors, whether it's people, whether it's services that we are looking at for them to enable the 5G services.
thank you very much, Ms. Moyo. All right, before we move to the next question, I would like to inform all the attendees that both the presentations will be uploaded onto the SAIEE website within the next few days. This will also include the recording for this webinar for today. All right, and then the next question that we have is, this one is related to the challenge that South Africa is facing at the moment, which is load shedding. So the question is, how will the continued power challenges in South Africa affect the 5G vision for South Africa? I'll start with you, Ms. Moyo.
I think, like I said, the electricity was once a general purpose technology, which is basically, it's an essential necessity when it comes to the power outages. It will, however, as we develop, I think most of the people, especially in South Africa, when you have looked at it, that's maybe another contribution to the reason why our data is exceptionally high, because on every site, in most cases, they have to have supplementary energy, which could be also diesel, which is also a challenge. It's not green, and maybe even the solar. But we also have the issue of vandalism and theft. So all those are the dynamics that somebody in terms of business has to balance. But in most cases, when you look at most of the places that I've talked about, the first cases that we anticipate the rollout of 5G, you would look at most of the malls now, they have backup power. So you would find that if they are using 5G in those areas, their services would rarely be interrupted. But as we're going to roll out and maybe into a larger scale, that would be really a bigger challenge.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moyo. And then let's hear from you, Dr. Mekuria.
Yes, I think it will affect, because I think more and more the studies from ITU are showing that the networks are going to consume more and more power. So we need more energy generation. But I think what we should do is not just coal power stations, but also allow more and more solar power generations, wind power generations. These are the green ones, and we have seen, in most of African countries also that this power outage is a killer. It kills the hospital systems, for making sure that medicines are kept in the fridge, and the way that people, hospitals and industries have to generate power through diesel generators and the likes is not sustainable. So we need to have a very sustainable and reliable electricity grid for industrialization. And I think some of you know about the fight between Ethiopia and Egypt recently. Ethiopia is planning for a very big high dam where they want to generate gigabits or gigawatt dams, but Egypt is saying no, because they say the water might be delayed, but that is not true. So, but it's very important if we really want to get industrialization, the electricity grid has to be reliable, and that can be done by alternative energy sources like solar. In South Africa, we have maybe 90-something% of solar daily, and the solar panels are getting cheaper. Why don't we allow people to have on their houses many people, and then generate, and then also they can feed to the grid back. So we need to have such solutions, and there are also efforts to bring in the nuclear back, but this is a very difficult situation. But I think having a reliable electricity grid is very important for the industry. And this we have to realize, not only for South Africa, for all of Africa and emerging economies. This is a very big issue, and it has to be solved. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Doctor. All right, the next question will go to Ms. Moyo. It says, thanks very much for doctors for wonderful presentation about 5G. It has for sure cleared all the negative attitude I had about it initially. I believe I can write a concept for my government about it. There is a query here. It says, what is required for 5G to be rolled out in any country? Over to you, Ms. Moyo. Hello?
Can I get the question again?
Yes, the question is, what is required for 5G to be rolled in any country?
The first thing is the regulation in the spectrum. I think that has been a big contention, especially also in South Africa when it comes to the availability of spectrum, because the bandwidth we're looking at is quite high. So the availability of spectrum is the key requirement and the key enabler. It's known. Then also it also depends on the regulatory framework. When it comes to that, it ties in with the readiness when it comes to the regulator to dispatch the spectrum that is required for enabling 5G. And the other thing is, it's also demand driven. Where do we really need to use that? Because while we are looking at a very high segment of spectrum, for the operators, they will have to pay a lot of money and they need to see their ROI coming back, which is basically, if there is a business sense, do we have the actual business and the drive to say, how are we going to be actually looking at it in actually driving that? We would compare certain maybe countries in different development stage, much as we are all developing. You would find that in most cases, if more or less some of the services that we are talking about are not a requirement, that might not be really favorable for most of the operators to move to 4G, to 5G. A good example I will give you, not that it's really outstanding here. We look at Namibia, where the population is almost 2 million and there is vast land. For any operator who is operating in that environment, is if you are going to have your spectrum, maybe through an auction, whatever way of allocating spectrum, they have to pay handsomely for that spectrum. How do you make a certain business sense to actually say you'd want to embark to 5G? So it's a combination of fundamentally the key enabler being the spectrum, but it has to make the business sense for the operators to find it favorable to move to 5G. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ms. Moyo. And the last question is to you, Dr. Mekuria. is as follows. Rural connectivity can prove to be difficult for SMMEs as this is a volumes game. How do you propose that these SMMEs improve their business case, looking at the payback period for their capital outlay? Over to you, Dr. Meguria.
I think the guy who asked this question should go to the website and see. We have a number of SMMEs who have been now supported to get the rural networks deployed, and also we are supporting them through monitoring and evaluation for sustainable business models. And we are also connecting the universities now to get rural business models for the digital entrepreneur in rural areas. So these are the real projects that are being deployed in rural South Africa now. We have 4 places now that has been deployed, and recently we have also launched a new project to address 10 other rural digital SMMEs to be supported through this project. And then we are supporting them both in the network launch and also the business model around developing the new innovative applications that are necessary to make sure that these are sustainable. The business model will be sustainable only if they can develop applications and value-added services around those networks. We cannot just leave them, just drop the network and then leave them. This was the case previously, but now what we have seen is that we engage with them for a year or 2, and then we provide them with the necessary business model innovation so that they become sustainable. So that is what we are doing, and we are happy to get you connected. If you come to the CSIR website and see there are a number of such use cases that you can study. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Dr. Meguria, and thank you very much, Ms. Moyo, for such an informative session tonight. All right, I would like to say thank you to the supporting institutes which made it possible for us to have this 5G webinars. The first one is SIGRE, AUTC, IEEE South Africa section, and the IEEE Africa Council in conjunction with the SAIEE telecommunications section. If you check on the right-hand side in our chat box, you will see there are 2 links. One is for joining the SAIEE telecommunications section. The other one is for you to register for our next webinar, which is happening next week, Wednesday, which will be the 6th installment of the 5G webinar series. It's happening next week, Wednesday, 6 o'clock in the evening. And lastly, ladies and gentlemen, please note that there will be a short survey that will be emailed to you, to all the attendees, to ensure that you help us to improve the services. The survey is only consisting of 5 questions, and it will take only 2 minutes of your time. Thank you very much to everybody, and may you enjoy the rest of your evening. Good night.
Thank you. Good night.
Good night.
Bye.
Bye.